that conference? Did you hear
Yeah,
that?
I was at conference.
Man, it was pretty scarce, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. So I actually had to sit in the back because of my little girl. She's not much for being quiet. So we were at the very back row and there was nobody in the overflow, at least for the first
No,
10, 15, 20 minutes. So
I think I think the spring break took its toll.
yeah, it did.
So,
So, oh well.
Hello,
how do you?
hello.
Hey, marking who all's here.
All present and accounted for.
Yeah. All right. So all we've got for tonight is Mark, Dan, and Jan talking about their topics, and then we need to talk about the project and kicking off on Monday.
Mine only take a few minutes, so that's good. We'll have more time.
Mine's only a few minutes too.
Cool. Who wants to start?
It doesn't matter.
Pick one.
Rochambeau? I say we just go down the list the way we have them, or at least the way it's written, so Mark would go first.
Okay. Let's see here. Over. All right. So I get to talk tonight about briefly about object creation. And so I really didn't every topic is new to me, so it's kind of fun to dive into each one of these topics. But what I found was that when it comes to object creation, here, let me I'm going to go up here and launch this. This is some documentation that I found on it. I'm starting to learn to like Mozilla Developer. They've got some neat things in there. It's pretty good, and also, you can go to the norms, that we always see. But every time I do a research or a search in the internet for these different topics, there's a good blend of people who have experience and so forth. But object creation is pretty straightforward. It's really, when you're creating objects, you're pretty much creating objects almost in anything that we do, in a way. And so, they talk a lot about that. But this one here, they kind of break it out and make it a little bit easier to see and understand. And so if you look at my code over here, I'm going to go down to the middle piece right here. And you're going to see that code is what's called an object literal. And in the process of creating an object, you have to set up, set that up. Now, an object in JavaScript is much like a class. And so when they show this square right here as a class, as a person, you're really just setting up the properties and so forth of that. And so this right here, as you look at the script on the side over here, when you set the object up, the variable is computer, I just said it that, but these pairs right here are what create the properties. And then the methods are what acts on these properties, how they access them and so forth. And so being able to set that up is pretty simple. And the reason it won't take long to really talk about this tonight is because I think it's pretty straightforward on the creation of these. Now, obviously, you can get really, this is a higher level of it, and you get really down deep into it and create arrays and all sorts of things, that it talks about. But, when you start looking at how these are created and pulled, whether it's from a straight literal like this, where, I've created these pairs of properties, and then I can access that through the get element, or I can do an alert or anything like that, and I'll show you both of those. But literally what you're doing is you're saying get the object, and I'm pulling just the two of the pieces out of there. I'll show that on my screen. And then on the creating the method itself, what method, I create a little small function right here. and it just goes through and it says return this, and boom. Actually, I had this set up just like this one where you could get the element, so it just shows it on the screen. But just before the class, I thought, oh, let's just alert it so I can show you the alert on that. So that's what that set up. But when you come up to here, this is where, you know, we're creating more of a function in a way, but you're creating the function setup of that. And so this right here, this portion of the code is the class that you see right here in this class person. So the class is, you know, just setting up, my terminology is different than what I should be talking about, but I think of it as a field, you know, it's like setting up the structure of how you want that to look. And then all things you can inherit from each one of those. So as you set up the class, there's certain things that, of those properties that are going to be common amongst every single time that you do something. And so this is the class it's set up, it's a structure. And then when I want to create a new instance of that, or create something to display, or maybe I've got a JSON file that's coming over, and each of those line items or, you know, pieces of data are coming into this, and it's creating a new particular item that either goes to a display or it stores it, you know, in a variety of different ways. This could be a form that somebody creates, and you create the structure here, the class, and then, you know, from there they're entering the data, you know, from there, and it can show up as so and so on. And so as you look at this, if I go to object creation, you notice right here, first thing it does, it pops up and it says, okay, give me that, you know, particular item, and then it shows the second one right here. So it gave this one, and now it's giving that one. And I just use the alert to kind of get so that you can see it a little bit better. And then the third is, it shows this one down here, the third one that I did, where I created the object method, and I just alerted that also. And that way it kind of shows you. So right here was the first two. It created the object from this, created two new instances, however you say that. And then the second one, which is the literal, it just pulled it, and I put it right here so you could see it actually pulled the brand in the computer right there. And then the third one is it created, you know, the same thing. It pulled the information, but you notice it's a little bit different. And if I run that again, let me pull that up really quick. You'll see the data right here, MacBook Pro, SSD, and it coordinates with that, and the 8 gig mem, and so forth. And so it's pulling whatever you want to say and do. And you can make it very fancy. So, you know, whether you're trying to create things that display to the end user on the terminal, you know, and have it pull up certain data, you can do that. And so really that's creating objects is not a real terrible difficult task. But that's pretty much it. I mean, I don't know of too much more to really say on that, except to kind of reiterate and use examples over and over the same type of thing and just showing it in different manners. But that's the basic structure of creating it, is truly you're creating a class, you're creating instances of that, and everything that, when you do an object creation, you've got to create a literal, and that is you're setting up the variable with the various pairs of data that are going to go into that in the properties. And then from there, you can display and do things, whatever you need to with that, and you can pull that information appropriately too. And so that's pretty much object creation that I could tell, and that what I was able to learn. Any thoughts? Any ideas? Any comments?
Pretty straightforward.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. I don't beat around the bush on this stuff. It's like get to it and be done. So.
Okay. Well, Dan, you're next.
Okay. Let me share here. So for this, really what I'm going to do is, for me, some of these like things that are a little bit more on the basic side, what gets me interested is not like the basic individual coding. It's like I always try and figure out some of the things that I can actually do with it that excite me, kind of like with Canvas. I've actually been playing with Canvas a little bit lately and playing around with it because I saw some of the deeper things that people have done with it, and it kind of excites me. So
oh gosh, there's so much you can do with that.
Yeah, and then even more like, CSS, I always originally just thought of it as really basically just the layout of your design of your website, making it look pretty, where you put things. But there's actually a lot more power to it than I originally thought, and it wasn't until I started looking into the actual animations as to what you can really do with it. So I've got a couple of websites here that actually do it, go into it, and a couple of them do go into some jQuery, which we don't do in this site, but you can accomplish it as well with plain JavaScript. It's just a little bit more complicated as far as the code. But I'll screen share here and so one of the websites that I've actually really enjoyed kind of looking through is this CSStricks.com. They actually have a lot of resources and like ways that you can play around with CSS. And it was this website that kind of tipped me off to a lot of the really in-depth things that you can do with it. I'll start off though by just kind of going over a little bit of the basics, which are kind of outlined on this one. It's just javascript.com. And this one's a little bit more, I've actually used this website for a few different things on code just to get me an understanding of some of the basics. Again, you know, WC3 is one of the websites that always pulls up when you look up the titles, but I like the layout of some of these other websites a little bit better. But basically, you know, here, the end goal of this script is just what's down here. This is a little demo that they have of things that you can do with JavaScript to actively change the CSS format of this little button here, basically. So they have it laid out here with basically you just have the div and then you define it. And then down here you create a function, you declare it with a variable, and you just define it, and then down here is the scripting, and this is where you're actually doing the different components of it. So for example here, this is the shadow one. This is all, I mean, it's really basic and it's not very in-depth to do something basic like this. You know, it's just one line of code other than the back end, but just as far as the actual change itself, just one line of code to be able to add a shadow to this button or whatever you want to do to it. But what started to get me excited about it was, like I said, this website. You know, you have the basic, press the button, move the screen, press the button, and it zooms in. But like, I didn't realize that with just CSS, you could even do something like this, where you're actually creating a heartbeat. And that's when I actually started looking into what actually is possible, because again, that's a lot more in depth than what I originally understood CSS to be able to do. And then one of the websites on CSS Trick that utilizes, again, they get into some jQuery on this one, but one of the websites that they have that utilizes this is just here. You just have the ability to go through and click on it, and it primarily uses just the CSS animations to be able to do all this. And I didn't realize that this is primarily just some basic JavaScript, but mostly just affecting it with CSS. So just, I don't know, those are the things that kind of get me excited to play around. And I figure especially this late in the class, most of us have already gone through it, and I just wanted to kind of show some of the things that I got excited about with the actual program. So that's really all I have.
Okay.
That was probably one of the more fun topics to touch on is CSS, because it does have a lot of the more moving.
No cuddles, right?
Yeah, originally I actually wasn't excited about it because my experience with it was just put a box here, make it look this way. But just like a lot of the other things, you realize that there's a lot more power to these basic tools.
Anything visual is always really appealing, as long as it's done well.
Okay, Jan, you ready?
I guess so. This is really short.
At this point, really short isn't bad, Jen.
No, I don't want to record it. I just want to run it. Okay, I'm dealing with local storage this week. And looking through everything, I kept running into a lot of very complicated ways of doing it. And I knew there had to be a simpler way, and we did find a simpler way. You have two types of storage. You have server side, where your information is saved on the server that houses the program. It's often done with PHP, JavaScript, not JavaScript, Java, or C++, probably some other ones as well. Programs like Minecraft and Guild Wars use server-side storage. All your information is on the server. You can access it from any computer. Local storage is the storage saved on your hard drive. It can be saved in really small files like cookies or larger files like INF files. Quite often you can find it in the registry under .local storage. Your browser is a good example of this because when you clear the cookies or remove the programs, all your information is removed and you have to re-enter it again. I found very simple ways. I went back to using my characters and monsters file from last week. And we have a simple way of saving it to the JSON file where you set the variable to the array, in this case the character JSON file. Then we use a set item function from JavaScript, setting the file name as my storage, which would be what you have right there. And then we use the JSON stringify to take the character object, which is the variable we used, and write it to my storage. Then lastly, we let the user know that the file was saved by printing file is saved on the screen. Now that can all run through and you may not know that it worked, even though you get that wording. So I set up a retrieve it function as well, where we set the variable to the local storage get item. Before it was set item, this was get item. My storage being the file that we went to, and I lost my mouse. There we are. We parse that into the object. Then I set a variable for the, I set variable I to object.length -1 because it is an array. And then I set up a for loop that brings up the characters and takes out the name for that and then lists them on the screen. I've got that somewhere. There it is. Okay, this will look familiar. There's the list that we have. We save it to the file, and then we're retrieving it from the file, and you find that it matches. So it shows that it is there because we're saving it from characters to my storage. And it was simple and easy, and I could understand it. And those were my resources. That's pretty much all I had. The more complicated the program, the more complicated the save function has to be. But, I'm a fan of the keep it simple theory. Any questions?
Not at this time for me.
It's good.
Cool.
Good deal.
Come on. Stop sharing. Click end.
So I wanted to go over the final project documentation and schedule. So give me a second. Give it a long second. All right. So, tell you, you'd think that this thing didn't have anything else to do. All right. So all of this is filled out. It gives us what the purpose for the site is, who our audience is. Since this is a single page, really the site map and workflow didn't really need to be there, but whatever. It at least gives us what our layout's going to be for files. For now, it's just going to be on my website. We can host it wherever. I'm just trying to fill in all the where our stuff's going to be at so it can be graded. If someone else wants to host it, I'm more than glad to hand it off. So one thing I noticed, Jan, you did have typography that you had submitted.
Yep.
But that typography is copyrighted. We can't actually use it for websites. It's Adobe specific font. So I was going to change all this, but that's when I looked that up, and it's not something that we can actually go use on a web page. So,
Bummer.
Yeah. Well, crap happens.
Because I know a lot of it came off of the typography file that the art department keeps sending us.
Oh, they might have. Art department for where?
For BYU.
Well, they might have paid for that. You can buy the copyright to utilize in your publications.
Is that because it's Adobe that it's copyrighted? Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
This one we're using is an open source. It's Google's open source fonts. It does have some restrictions, but it doesn't come under, our stuff doesn't come under those restrictions for when it can be used. So, it covers the navigation, kind of how we want it to look like. Again, all of this can change. The only reason why I put it up here was just to try to get us something going forward. And it has all the different sketches for how we want it to look like in each of the different modes on different devices. And then this is what I finished. Had to do this twice. I was really perturbed at myself. I closed it out before saving it. So this was my second iteration of this same drawing. So this is done as well in a Visio. I highlighted here. The reason why these are colored is because these are the shared shared functions. So these two are the same function. You just call them in different lines of the menu. Same with the orange ones and the blue ones. And then the pseudocode, which really is more like regular code. I just find it easier that way. It's not 100%. I can't just copy paste all this, but it gives a general overview of how we want to do things for each of the different functions that were called out in that UI planning. But if you want to go through that, and Mark, if you were wanting to kind of see kind of what that CIT262 is going to be like, right here is a pretty good example of what CIT262 is about.
You're going to be drawing these things all the time? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, fun.
No charts.
I remember that from a few classes back, but so I need Visio? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you're going to need Visio. So, but if you want to follow it and kind of, it'll give you kind of how the program's supposed to flow, what the user will, this is actually the only one that gets user input is from here. It's the search form. And then it hands off to all these different functions to do the search. I'm sorry, I can't zoom in on this. If I try to zoom in, it doesn't really work. They've got it locked down, but you've got the different information that is requested from them. So you got the cuisine type. The geolocation really isn't something they input. We ask for that information from the device itself. You can use, sorry, I had this noted down the geolocation functionality for each of the browsers. But it's just a simple call to your browser saying, hey, give me the location of this person.
Does that come from the browser or from the machine's GPS?
So it goes through the browser, and then the browser talks to the machine to get its GPS. It's based off of, that's how it works. So you ask the browser, and then the browser asks your machine. So this is what it does. It's the HTML5 geolocation. So we can do that to get the actual longitude and latitude of that person and send that as part of the Places search API, which is actually really simple. I was quite surprised after I started digging through it. It's way easier than the Edmunds API was to dink around with. Deal with that later. But I mean, so that's it. I mean, this is our documentation, so it gives us direction on where we need to go, what we need to do, and kind of updated this a little bit. So if you look in the JavaScript, it actually has the function names now instead of function 1, 2, 3 placeholders.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, other than that, this is done. So,
Okay.
any questions, concerns, changes? Totally open to anything. I just wanted to get something right in writing to get us thinking.
How are you thinking of doing the store favorite restaurants section?
So, I mean, that's really up to how we want to do it. It's not me.
No, but you had a thought process on this.
Yeah, I'm personally thinking we can create a restaurant object, a class per se, really. And each of those items that we call out to Google for, it'll be returned in JSON, which that we can parse it into that same restaurant class. And then basically what we're going to do to store it.
Exactly what I did.
Do what?
It's doing exactly what I did this week.
Yeah. So you just put those, that AJAX call, all that we're going to format it the same way Google does and just store it minus a couple pieces of data because it returns the reviews and it also returns the rating of 1 to 5, whatever it is. I mean, some of that I don't know if we want to store it or need to store it, but those are some things that we can kind of weed out. But basically, yeah, you'd store that into an array of those restaurant types and then stringify it and store it into local storage. And then every time you go to the saved tab, or I'm calling them panels because I just don't know what else to call them because you're not switching pages. It's just a little div container that you hide and unhide.
Like a pop-up window of some sort or what?
Yeah, I mean, so when I was doing it as part of the Edmunds app that I had, it was literally just these div containers. And what I would do is if I wanted to switch, I would just say, okay, all the rest of them, set them to no display none. And then the one I want to show, display in line. And so it would display that one. And whenever I wanted to change, it would make them all invisible again and then just display the one I wanted. So it's not really a pop-up like an alert would be.
No.
Or a modal form. A modal form is, let me show you what I'm
But you're containing that in a specific area to display, correct? So that it always displays in one given area?
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, and when you set it to display none, it doesn't even placehold it on the page. Like it completely takes it out there.
Yeah, it comes out all together.
Which is super nice.
Oh my gosh. There we go. So those divs for all my different things in the menu, they are in this page right now, but they have display none set except for my garage div. And it's, you go here into the elements, the main, here's the garage div. See all these divs? Those are those different panels I was telling you about. And here is the garage panel or the div. And notice here, well, I'm going to highlight it. It's weird. It doesn't show them. Either way, but that's the panel, this entire little area. And so when I change to go to like a record, notice now this says display none and this one says display inline, and it's the one that's showing. So that's how I did it on this one. I mean, if you guys have better ideas, I'm totally up for it. So
I like it. I think it's way more efficient than the 230 code for the mobile menu with the, I like this.
I like it. I think it's perfect because especially when you're trying to put it on a phone, you don't have a whole lot of room.
yeah. And I mean, you guys will notice that this looks very familiar. I literally took my app and changed some of the colors and the logo, and that's pretty much what it was. So we can change that around. I'm just saying you'll just recognize it because it's very similar. A lot of the same structure.
I think recycling structures is awesome.
Yeah, because see, even this page is the same.
Yeah.
Wrong one. Wow. Tell you, trying to record with this app is killing me. It's like, I don't know what it's doing. It takes forever to do this. There.
Is it pinging your memory or your CPU?
I think it's the I/O on the hard drive because my CPU, it's not like, normally whenever it gets where it's using a lot of CPU, that fan just kicks off like crazy and I got a ton of hot air coming out and there's none coming out right now.
It's probably using a lot of memory space for buffering and storing.
But it's the same menu. It's just different colors and then different options. So, and then I have the same divs here. There's just two of them here. And again, we can make this bigger. We can make more divs for different options. I just couldn't really think of anything as I was just going through how we wanted it to work. So these were the only two that we would have panel-wise.
So if you look at the psychology of colors, if we use red for those things we dislike.
Yeah. I thought red was supposed to make you hungry.
Looks like somebody wrote it with ketchup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or blood.
Yes.
Mark, you trying to go into Freudian psychology?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that's really it. So
for this next week, we have, like, as far as kind of a plan of attack on what to have when, we're kind of looking at the HTML structure of it to be done.
Correct. Yeah, so we really need to get the body of this all filled out. We can always change the navigation, footer, header, head, all that stuff, but that pretty much already is set in stone. Or, well, not set in stone, it's configured, I should say.
Yeah.
We can manipulate a little bit, but right.
But, yeah, the forms and the saved environment, that's not there at all right now. And I did a lot of this stuff too, but again, we could change the formatting of the CSS however we want. Again, if we find a font that we like over, gosh dang it, where'd I put it? Here it is. Over what's in here, let's change it. I'm totally up for that. This is what we had started with just to have it simple. Huh?
I usually just do freefonts.com and it works fine.
Yeah.
Whatever I can download from that.
And you could always look through Google's open source ones again and see what other ones fit better than the ones we've got. Totally up to that. But the Adobe, you do need to take into consideration the licensing around it. So but yeah, this week is all HTML, the HTML encoding. Just trying to get it all filled out the way we want it to look. And then the JavaScript behind it that'll interact with it will be next week.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Sounds good.
I'm for it.
And then the last week, it's all testing, but again, if we have to leak over JavaScript or HTML, that's why I kind of had the testing week. I'm like, well, we should be testing as we're going, and then towards the end, shouldn't be that long to test it to make sure it works. There's only 2 really application panels worth messing with here. One is the search, and then the other is the looking at your saved ones. So it shouldn't take too long.
Well, and is your site easily? Is it easy to put this on that? I mean, I have a site easy enough. It doesn't matter which one we put it on, but if the code's sitting on your computer, is it easier for you just to push it to the remote site?
Yeah, I can push it wherever. You guys can access it right now if you wish. That URL is accessible to you guys as well. That's on a public server.
Just your allthingsnetwork.org down in your footer.
Yeah, I put the link to it down in my footer as well. It has both my personal and the group one.
Okay.
Oh, one thing I do think I found that this actually it's in the enriched data of Google Places that's actually deprecated. There was a cost in here as well.
The what?
A cost.
Or like the number, the dollar signs or whatever for how much.
So you can know if it's really expensive or if it's super cheap. That's in the enriched data that was with Zagat, however you say it. And they deprecated that information back in May of last year. So we could probably still use it because deprecated doesn't mean it's not available for you. It just means that they're going to start phasing it out and you need to move off.
I've never found those dollar signs to be particularly accurate anyways.
Yeah. As someone else's idea of what's cheap and what's expensive.
Exactly.
So that's the only change to the actual form itself. You just drop the one off, the cost at the bottom.
Okay.
And I actually give you a good example of what it looks like when you get it back. Oh, and I've already got an API or a key as well. So kind of the same thing. You can return it in XML or JSON. Of course, JSON's recommended. So here's some optional parameters you can do. But that's might be how we can do it. I think that I'm not sure if this is. Let's just look at it real quick. Where's premium?
Is this all the functionality of the API for the search?
Say that again. Sorry.
Is this the API functionality for searching for the restaurants in a given area?
Yeah.
Is that what this? Okay.
Yeah, it's the. I can give you guys the URL. Go back to the main page. Because it talks about all the different information you can send it and request. Maybe we will be able to do that. It doesn't look like that's. Huh. Oh my goodness. Whoever does make the the radius thing. We will probably display it in miles, but remember that they want it in meters. So they'll have to do a conversion there from miles to meters. So this might actually work. Huh. I'll mess with that a little bit over the weekend and see how it returns data. Okay. But yeah, here's an example of how you would actually send them a request. All the different keywords and junk. I mean, this is identical to what I did with the Edmonds app. And then
Edmonds.
Do what?
Oh, just with the Edmonds.
Yeah. I thought they gave an example. Maybe it's on a different page. Oh, no, here it is.
Yeah, that's something that'd be interesting how you did that, because I've never seen how an API actually calls in. I mean, when I saw that for the weather, I didn't get a chance to go into it and really dig in and make it work.
Yeah.
And so this would be interesting to see.
If you want to dig through it, the My Edmonds app, you can see all the code how it does it. It's all available for you to go look at. So you can just look at the source code on it and see how I made the call. And you can actually go make the call yourself. My key is in there, which is what I actually kind of don't like, is that someone could get my key out of here and just start using it if they wanted. Whatever.
Use up all your
Yeah, exactly. So,
for the day.
Yeah, exactly. But this is I mean, they give you really good examples of what it looks like here. So you just have a radar search. See what they say a radar search is. You need to place the key. Museums near. Radar search. Up here. Less detail. Typical. Okay, that's what. Yeah. We still want the text search or this one here because it gives us the reviews back as part of the call. That's one of the things
which is essential when it comes to restaurants.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Are we going to drill down to the level of, because I know that we're searching for any restaurant within a given area radius, but are we going to say, I want Asian or something like that, and it finds those? Or what's our thought here? Because I don't know if we've drilled down to that level or not.
Let me open up the actual Visio so I can zoom in on the questionnaire portion of this.
Well, the original response was to find out how many, what restaurants are within a certain radius, and then, what restaurants fit a certain type of cuisine.
Category of cuisine.
Yeah, so we asked for cuisine, which we'll have to create a list of what we want to be the cuisine that this app will support, because that's the one thing that they don't have that type of thing with this Google Places thing. You can't say, okay, give me all types of cuisine around the world. Give me a list. It's kind of the same thing I had to do with the vehicle maintenance app. I had to start off with this list here, the years. That's a hard-coded list in the app. So.
Oh, with the min and a max kind of thing on there? Yeah,
so this is hard-coded. This is not something I pulled from Edmonds data-wise. This is just a list. You can actually see it in here. Header, need body here. So there's all the options. And it was that's as far back as Edmonds went, was 1990. So we'll have to kind of do the same thing with the cuisines, and you just put it in there as part of the text search. One of the variables up here allows you to just drop in what you're looking for within the radius of your location.
So you could type in like sandwiches and it would find anything that had that in it?
Yeah, exactly. Keyword, here it was. So you could do keyword
we go.
equals, and then that'll be what our cuisine. So Chinese or hamburgers or whatever.
Right.
Chinese,
Thai,
Italian,
Chinese.
Yeah.
Indian.
Some of this we
We
might
gotta
want to also do, like the open now. You could just have it not something that they select, but have it in the background. Okay, these are the restaurants that are open now that we can use, because it's just a true false or Boolean statement
That's
for this
true.
one.
Those would all be closed in Rexburg after 10 o'clock.
But yeah, so that's
Not in Sycamore.
yeah.
Boy, I swear it used to be like 9 o'clock in Rex. I was there.
They're getting risky with 10 o'clock.
I
Yeah.
know. With the expansion of Rick's to BYU, you know.
Yeah. Anybody see any concerns or?
Not yet.
Yep, I think it looks great.
No, I think that this is a good, especially a great start and a
Yeah.
really easy to understand where we need to go with it. Does anybody else have any like concerns or questions as far as like the topics themselves? Anybody need any help with anything in particular before we move into this stage?
Well, I think it's really going to be once we start getting into it, we'll discover what we don't know and what we really need to derive help from each other or the research that needs to be done. So,
Yeah, I think that the good thing about this is we're now working together to complete the goal, so we can kind of rely on each other a little bit more.
now we had talked about possibly meeting twice a week, just because once a week is not that much. Is that something that we still want to consider? Maybe Tuesday and Friday, so it's a good breakup of the week, or just once a week and we just corroborate, via chat.
I think next week we should probably be good, but I'm thinking that JavaScript week, it might be good to have, a check-in earlier if we can.
Yep.
Yeah, I can definitely plan any time to meet. I can just make sure if we plan it now, I can make sure to plan my schedule, so I should be able to meet it whenever you guys are available.
I'm pretty open.
Yeah, this is the only class I actually have meetings for, so I can squeeze it in along the way.
So if we can meet before 8, because these I already paid for these hockey classes and they're $25 each, so I hate to lose $25 on a class.
That's not very much for hockey.
Yeah.
Not at
Well,
all.
you only
When
get an
nights do you have
hour.
hockey?
My kids grew up in hockey. I know that's not very
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're spending anything, it's still...
No, I get it.
What nights do you have hockey?
It's just one of those rare nights. It's not even like I don't have it this coming Tuesday.
But the following Tuesday you do, right?
Yeah. It jumps around all over the place. Well, except for the week after that. It's
Well,
there that Tuesday too.
If we can avoid meeting on the 23rd, that's our anniversary, and so it'd probably be good if I took my wife out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you guys okay with Wednesday?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can do Wednesday.
Do you need to meet a little bit later on Wednesday, like 9 o'clock, Olin?
So with the scouts, they're still doing the home repair merit badge wrap up, and that guy's going to be still teaching it. He
Okay.
usually ends it in an hour because the kids by that time they're trying to nail things into each other's hands and.
Yeah, I get it. So 8:30 still good?
Weeblos?
No, well, pretty close to it. The Deacons.
Close enough.
Yeah, it's not much better. I will say that.
No, it really isn't.
No, actually, they just get a little more creative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get this meeting invite out to you guys, and
So on the week that we're doing JavaScript, we're meeting on Wednesday, and when was the other day?
Friday,
Friday?
Thursday. I mean, that would kind of help us with, because that would give that person the one additional day to do whatever they need, programming wise.
Yep.
And again,
Mhm.
I always have Google Hangouts going on my phone and I have it open all day long at work, so I use it all the time.
Okay, so you're talking about Wednesday and when? Thursday?
Wednesday and Thursday, the normal Thursday.
Which week? The 13th or the 20th?
So that would be the
Next week.
22nd. Oh, you know what? The 23rd is the one you said. We might move that to a Friday. So that one Thursday
let's do
meeting, move it to a Friday.
Yeah, because that's my anniversary is on the 23rd.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we could go the 22nd and the 24th.
Yeah, my daughter does Irish dance, so next week I will be pushing it to make our 8:30. Wouldn't be able to add any others in there because it's St. Patrick's week.
So next week we're still planning on the 16th at 8:30,
Mhm.
or are we wanting to? Tiff, are you saying you
No,
want to push it back?
No, that's probably about the only time I can. That's like
Okay.
my evening. I don't have Irish pubs and stuff to be at.
Take videos.
I'm hoping to.
Ugh. No, I don't know. You don't need assistant. Man. I'm so glad this is the last semester. I don't have to deal with these recordings anymore.
Lucky.
It wasn't bad when Google Hangouts used to record it for you. It was so awesome. And then they ripped that out. And
Yeah, that was a pain.
don't think that wasn't one I wanted. Google. Forgot Brother James's email. Like, and interesting. Maybe I didn't have it continuing far enough out. I guess I didn't. Good. I don't have to move it then.
The 16th was the last one on the
Calendar.
Thursday night.
Actually, I can't. Recording.
We can probably kick the recording for now to make it easier for you. We've done the presentations.
Yeah, you could turn that off.